test, guys. 768, 768. I hope you understood that, boss. Right. So answer is if we configure singleton Java class as Spring Bean without enabling factory method bean instantiation, then the IOC container creates separate Spring Bean class object for every factory.getBean method call. Factory.getBean method call. Otherwise, IOC container gives same object reference for all factory.getBean method calls. Example 1. In application context.xml. Example 1 in application context.xml. In client application. In client application. In client application. Tell me the hash codes, guys. Yeah, 1 minute. Practically also, let me remove this. Let me run it. Done, boss. 2 objects are created. Example 2, guys. In application context.xml. In application context.xml. Done, boss. Copy this. Factory -method is equal to get instance. Factory -method is equal to get instance. In client application. In client application. Yes. Fine, boss. Right. This is the another thing. Now listen. These are very interesting questions, boss. They looks very normal when I'm teaching, but you go and face the interview. They will ask you as if you don't know answer. They will ask with the attitude as if you never experimented, as if you don't know answer. Okay. Since we are discussing, they are looking different. If you, I didn't discuss. Interviewer asked this question directly in the interview room. Definitely, you will get a surprise. Definitely you'll be surprised and you will feel bad why I didn't get this kind of thoughts. Understanding my point? Everywhere it uses reflection API only. In both cases it uses reflection API only. Is that clear? Yeah, maybe second case it uses new operator because get instance method is called na, that's why. But in first case it happily uses reflection API. Shilpa madam, I think you missed yesterday's class. IOC container is capable of accessing private constructors of Spring Bean class while doing pre-instantiation. Don't forget that. Okay, now listen, guys. In real Spring projects, okay, guys. In real Spring projects, sir, I enabled factory method bean instantiation. That's why same hash code will come. Abhinash, if you become active, it will be useful for me and it will be useful for others also. I enabled factory method bean instantiation. Definitely same hash code will come na. Okay. Acha, second one, I think I should give same hash code. Old one is pasted 1 minute. 1 minute then. 1 minute. Sorry, boss. What's happening? Okay. Acha, here not there. Factory method get in a stance. That's fine. Setter injection test. Okay, that's right, boss. That's right. I didn't observe it. I just copy pasted. Output, my dear. Yes, that's right. Yeah, now listen. In real Spring projects, we take data source, data source, data source. Come on. DAO, service, and controller classes as singleton scope Spring Beans. Whereas we take VO, DTO, and BO classes as prototype scope Spring Beans. If we configure them as Spring Beans. Let us assume I decided not to create object for VO, DTO, BO classes manually. I decided to configure them as Spring Beans. In future, we do like that also. In that situation, definitely we will be forced to take them as what? Prototype scope Spring Beans. Why, sir? Okay. You just assume a web application, guys. You just assume a web application. Same customer registration only. Or same corona patient registration only. Okay. Tell me, corona patient registration web application will be used by one user at a time or multiple users at a time. One user at a time or multiple users at a time. Definitely multiple users simultaneously will use it. No doubt in that. Okay. At a time, 10 corona patients details are registering. Now tell me guys, how many details will come? 10 patient details at a time. To receive them, to store them, we should think about having one object of Vivo class or 10 objects of Vivo class. One objects of Vivo class 10 objects of Vivo class 10 objects. And to copy them to DTO class objects, we need one object of DTO na 10 objects. 10 objects. To copy them to BO class object, we need one object of BO class 10 objects of BO class 10 objects. So if you want to see IOC container creating more than one object, we should think about going for what? Singleton scope or prototype scope. Come on, guys. If you give answer like this, why interviewer will not be impressed? Why interviewer will not offer job for you, boss? Are you listening my statement, boss? So definitely what? Definitely service DAO data source controller classes will be taken as singleton scope because they are having effectively read-only state. Okay, VO, BO, DTO classes will be taken as what? Prototype scope. If at all they are configured as a Spring Bean. Maybe in our first project standalone, I created manually, boss. In web application, let us assume you decided to get those objects from our IOC container. Then what is the better scope, Gus? Definitely the better scope is what? Prototype scope. Clear, my dears? Right. Okay, next. Scope is equal to request. Scope is equal to request. Keeps Spring Bean class object. Spring Bean class object in request to scope. That means specific to each request. Request keeps Spring Bean class object as request attribute value. Request attribute value using request dot set attribute method. Request dot set attribute. It internally uses request dot set attribute method, guys. Attribute name, attribute value. Attribute name, attribute value. Having bean ID as bean ID as the bean ID as the attribute name. The people who know servlet, they are aware of this. And Spring Bean class object as the attribute value. Spring Bean class object as the attribute value. Next one, boss. Bean ID as the attribute value, object as the attribute value. Spring Bean class object as the attribute value. Next one. Okay. It does not keep Spring Bean class object. Spring Bean class object reference in the internal cache of IOC container. Okay. Okay. Now tell me, this scope can be used only in web application environment, that too by using application context container. That too by using application context container. We cannot work while dealing with the Bean Factory container. So right now we don't have web application. We don't have web application. We have standalone application. But you try. There's no wrong of trying once, na. You try once. What happens? Right. You will get error. What is the error? No scope resisted. No scope resisted for scope. No scope resisted for scope name request. See, we are getting error here or not there. Illegal resisted, illegal state exception. It is not at all recognizing that scope, boss. Number one, we are using Bean Factory container. Number two, it is a standalone application. There is no question of having what? A request scope. Is that clear, boss? So I can demonstrate only while teaching Spring MVC kind of environment, boss. Fine. Next one. Scope is equal to session. Scope is equal to session. Keeps Spring Bean class object. Keeps Spring Bean class object in session scope. In session scope. That means specific to each browser software of client machine. Each browser software of client machine. Same thing, guys. Keeps Spring Bean class object as session attribute value using session dot set attribute method. Having Bean ID as the attribute name and Bean class object as the attribute value. Attribute value. Next one. Okay, these 2 points as it is, boss. Super. The next one. Scope is equal to application. Application, boss. Yeah, don't worry. I'll definitely introduce what? Application context container. Yes. Tell me, guys. Keeps Spring Bean class object in application scope. That means, okay, specific to each web application. Okay, specific to each web application. Nothing but global within the web application. Global within the web application. Keeps Spring Bean class object as application attribute value. Application attribute value, nothing but servlet context attribute value. Servlet context attribute value using tell me sc dot set attribute method. Sc dot set attribute method. Same thing. Having bean id as the attribute name and bean class object as the attribute value. Bean class object as the attribute value. As usually, last two statements. Okay. Scope is equal to WebSocket, boss. Scope is equal to WebSocket. Yes, guys. Keeps Spring Bean class object. Okay, in WebSocket scope. WebSocket scope. WebSocket scope while working with WebSocket protocol based web application development. Okay, na? WebSocket web application development. Now listen carefully, boss. WebSocket is a separate scope. What is the difference between HTTP and what? Okay, WebSocket is one protocol, boss. Suresh, please keep the habit of seeing the statements properly, boss. I'm saying protocol and you are saying object. Before framing and writing question in the chat box, first keep the good habit of listening and reading. Listening and reading. This is one small request from my side. When you get a question, first give 5 minutes time before putting that one in the chat box. I typed letter 1, you asked question 1. Not going to work out. I request everyone 5 minutes time. I feel most of your doubts will be clarified in next 5 minutes discussion. So it's a protocol, boss. Now listen, I cannot talk much on it, but I will give basic idea, boss. HTTP supports off duplex communication. Off duplex communication. Off duplex communication. Now listen carefully. This is my web server having web application. This is my web server having web application. As usually, this is my browser. As usually, this is my browser. Yes. Request one, response one. It's a duplex, boss, because full communication. You're asking something, it is giving something. Super. But until we ask something, nothing will be given. Are you listening my statement? Until we ask something, nothing will be given. We have to request every time to get something. Are you getting my point, boss? HTTP. request to response to. Anything to client until request comes. Until request comes. So it is called off duplex communication. Off duplex communication. Listen, guys. Between you and bank, it is a full duplex communication, off duplex communication. Between you and bank, whenever you ask something, bank is telling. Whenever bank having some information, they are pushing to you. It's a full duplex communication, Ra Babu. It's a full duplex communication. So whenever you want bank statement, they are delivering. Whenever you want to check balance, they are delivering. But sometimes when you don't ask also, they will send balance notice. They will send, this is your account statement. They will send, this is the interest amount you got. Okay, India, government is expecting Aadhaar link. They will send messages to you without you are requesting for it or not. Someone deposited money into your account. They will push the message. It is giving only when you ask for it. No, na boss. Money detected for corona, na. I don't think so. That is what full duplex communication, boss. This is HTTP style. So when it comes to WebSocket, boss. When it comes to WebSocket, yeah, still it is in R&D. This protocol still in R&D mode only, not picked up that much. Okay, not picked up that much. Request one, response one. Okay, now listen. I'll remove this one. I'll keep this one, this arrow this side only. I'll keep this one also this side only. Here is my response 2 and response 3. Here is my response 2, response 3. Once a connection is established, boss, once a connection is established, whatever things are there in future, okay, they will be pushed to the client automatically. There is no need of requesting for it. There is no, if you want, you can request. It's not like that he cannot request, but there is no need of requesting every time to get the things. Whatever is there for client, whenever they get something for client, they will be pushed to the client, boss. Okay, now listen. Here I typed hi, then server says hello. Okay. Okay, then I ask balance, give balance, balance. I want balance. Then server says, okay, take 9,000 is the balance. But look at this one. Look at this one. Here I said hi. Server says hello. Server says hello. Okay. Next server says, okay, balance is 9,000. Same server says, okay, update update Aadhaar. Same server says update Aadhaar. So once connection is established, boss, whatever is there for client, okay, server will automatically push to the browser. So this is called full duplex communication. Full duplex communication. Are you listening my statement, boss? Yes. Once the connection is established between browser and server or web application, okay, browser and web application, the server or web application can push the data to okay, client whenever it is ready with the data. Whenever it is ready with the data. Come on, guys. So these are the various scopes. So okay. Now can I introduce application context container, boss? Can I introduce application context container? Okay. Yes, boss. Application context container. Mr. Rudragowda Patil, don't you think these questions are not interview questions? Every day what I am doing, boss. Wherever possibility is there, I am covering interview questions. And if you didn't recognize, I must say pity on you, boss. Are you understanding my statement? Please, please realize what I am teaching to you people. Wherever possibility is there with respect to each topic, I am giving FAQs, frequently asked questions. And moreover, don't ever study subject only with frequently asked questions. Okay. Now listen. Interviewer never comes to your cabin with a ready-made question paper. Are you understanding my point? Never comes to your cabin with ready-made question paper, boss. You asked first question, you have given answer. So based on the terminologies you have used in the answer, again you will frame the next question. Again you will give some answer based on the terminologies you have used in the second answer. Again you will frame the third questions. So please don't study like that. It's not at all going to work out. If you are having that kind of if you are having that kind of attitude, please come out of that. Fine, boss. Application context container. Okay. Okay. Now listen. If some If you want to know all the beans that are there, all the beans. Now let me check, is there any method like this? Factory dot, factory dot, factory dot. See, get bean definitions count. There is a method called get bean definition count, get bean definition names. That means you will get the definitely tell me you will get the all the bean IDs that are there in the current IOC container. So for example, I have written like this. Sysout, okay, beans count, factory dot get bean definitions, get a bean definition count. Okay, fine. Sysout all bean IDs, all bean IDs. Arrays dot to string. It can convert any array into string, boss. Okay. Factory dot get bean definitions, get bean definition names. Control plus shift plus O. Okay. Setter injection test, boss. Setter injection test. Now let me give the proper scope, guys. Let me keep proper scope. So singleton. Singleton. See guys, all the bean IDs are coming now. DT, WMG, PM, P1. These are the how many bean IDs are there? 3 are there. So like this, we can get it. We can happily get the things, boss. Okay, nice. Same methods are there in application context container also. So these are some additional methods. And one more question is coming. What is the difference between prototype scope? Because prototype creates new object. Okay. And what is this? Request also creates new object for every request. Prototype and request to scopes of Spring Bean. Listen carefully. Request to scopes of Spring Bean. Okay. Prototype scope can be used in both standalone both in what? Both standalone and web application. Can be used in both standalone and web application. And next one, prototype scope bean. Prototype scope Spring Bean class object. Prototype scope Spring Bean class object. Will not be stored anywhere. Okay, anywhere. Will not be stored anywhere. For you, will not be stored anywhere. So, no reusability. No reusability for the scope object. Yes. Next one. Request to scope can be used only in web application. Only in web application. Come on, guys. Only in web application. Next. Request to scope Spring Bean will be stored in request object as request attribute value. Request attribute value having reusability having reusability throughout request, reusability in all web components throughout request. In that request, but to process the request, 2-3 web components are there. In all 3 web components, yes, this reusability is there. Next, prototype scope can be used in both Bean Factory and application context containers. Container. Request scope. Both sounds same. Both creates new object, because request scope says for every request I'll create new object, and prototype says for every factory.getBean method I will create a new object. Both sounds very similar, but lot of technical differences are there. Request scope can be used only in application context container. I think you got enough differences about them, guys. Sounds same but actually different, technically different. Okay, now listen. Application context container, guys. In web application also default scope is singleton only. Anywhere it is singleton only. Understanding my statement? VO, IOC container, Spring Bean container, all are one and the same. This IOC container, Spring Bean container can be, this IOC container, Spring Bean container can be, come on, of type Bean Factory, of type application context. Super. Now listen, enhancement of Bean Factory container. Okay, Bean Factory container was. Yeah, Bean Factory container with additional features. I will list what are the additional features. Now tell me, to create application context container. Okay, container. We need to create object for Java class that implements application context interface, boss. What interface? Application context docs. Sir, why are you opening it? Only to get the package name, nothing else. Application context interface. Yeah, that is the popularity of Java. You type any class name and just type docs, you will get the help. Okay. Application context interface. Now observe very carefully that application context interface directly or indirectly extends from what? Bean Factory interface. Directly or indirectly extends from Bean Factory interface. Now let's see, guys. This application context interface. Okay. Extending from whom? Listable Bean Factory was. Listable Bean Factory is extending from what? Bean Factory. Listable bean factory is what? Extending from bean factory. So indirectly it is extension of that one or not there. Okay. So bean factory interface, guys. Listable bean factory. Next, application context. Don't worry. Where to use bean factory container, where to use application context container, definitely I will discuss, boss. Definitely I will discuss. Okay. And differences between bean factory container and application context container, very standard question. And when it comes to Spring Bean, can you explain Spring Beans? Can you explain Spring Bean scope? That is also quite common. Okay, someone asked about what is global session scope, sir. That is removed. That is removed and deprecated. First deprecated, then removed. Don't worry about it. It is specific to portlet environment, boss. Portlet environment. But now they are not continuing. From in Spring 3 itself, they deprecated. In Spring 4, they have removed. Seriously, they have removed. Don't worry about that scope. Bean factory interface, listable bean factory interface, application context interface. Yes, the popular, not popular, the important implementation classes of application context interface. Come on. Application context interface to create application context container. Application context container. Are you getting my point there? Yes. Yeah. File system XML application context. File system XML application context. Yes, what it do? Creates AC container. Now onwards, AC means application context. AC container by locating given Spring Bean configuration file from the specified path of file system. From the specified path of file system, guys. Example, tell me. File system XML application context is CTX is equal to new file system XML application context of you can give either absolute path or relative path. The relative path is quite recommended. src/com/cfc/ application context dot xml. What dot xml, guys? Right. Yeah, tell me. Here src is not default, boss. Okay. B. Class path XML application context. Class path creates AC container by locating Spring Bean configuration file from the directories from the directories and jar files added to the class path environment variable. Class path or build path, guys. Class path or build path. Yes, boss. Class path. What is this? Class path. XML application context. New class path XML application context. No need of writing SRC. No need of writing SRC. You are aware of that. Because by default, SRC folder is there in the class path, boss. Come on. We studied all these things while learning Bean Factory container also. Yes, boss. From the directories and jar files added to class path or build path. By default, SRC folder will be there in what? Class path environment variable. I mean to say class path or build path of Eclipse project. That's why no need of mentioning SRC over there. Next one. XML web application context. XML web application context, guys. Yes. Creates AC container in web application environment by taking servlet logical name hyphen servlet logical name hyphen servlet logical name hyphen servlet.xml file of webinf folder as Spring Bean configuration file name. Servlet logical name hyphen servlet.xml of webinf folder as Spring Bean configuration file name. Yeah, here Spring Bean configuration file will have one specific notation, boss. Specific notation. Servlet logical name is A hyphen servlet.xml. Which servlet, guys? Which servlet? Front controller servlet logical name. Now don't ask me what is front controller. We will discuss later. Yes, because front controller servlet. Front controller servlet. Okay. Because front controller servlet will be only one number in entire web application, boss. So only one logical name will be there. Okay, that logical name hyphen servlet.xml will be taken as what? Spring Bean configuration file. So right now I cannot give that one. So because it's a different story. Code, you don't worry about it. Next. Annotation config. Application context. Annotation config application context, guys. So what is this? Yes, creates AC container for standalone applications. AC container, okay, fine, standalone, leave it. AC container by taking given configuration class alternate for configuration file, nothing but XML, by taking given configuration class listen, guys, it won't look for XML file. It is there to take configuration class, alternate for configuration file, nothing but XML file, guys. Okay. Useful in standalone 100% code-driven configurations, comma, Spring Boot mode, Spring application development. Okay. Here, XML should be avoided. In Spring Boot mode of application development, 100% code-driven configuration-based application development, XML should be avoided, boss. That's why we have got what? Annotation config application context. I hope you are connected this one. In future, we are going to use this one, boss. Annotation config application context. Super. Next one, E. Annotation config web application context. Annotation config web application context. Web application context. Same as D, but can be used in web application environment. Web application environment. So here what mostly what? Spring MVC web applications. Yes. Okay, boss. Here also what kind of web applications, boss? Spring MVC web applications. Is that clear, my dear? Okay, these are the important classes. Many are there, but these are the important things. Generally, everyone concentrate on these two classes, but I want my student to talk about all the five, because we are going to learn 100% code driven Spring programming and lot of Spring programming models of Spring programming we are going to use. And today onwards, forget about Bean Factory container. You learn only for knowledge sake. You learn only for differences sake. Now onwards, every day you should think about working with application context container. If you are not using application context container, there should be a reason for not using so. So like this, we have to think about using application context container. You should say Bean Factory. I heard long back. I never used it that much, because in real time, no one uses Bean Factory container. Everyone uses application context container, because application context is having its own features and also giving what? Bean Factory container features. So this is my Bean Factory object, guys. This is my Bean Factory object. This is my application context object. This is my Bean Factory object. This is my what? Application context object. Is that clear, my dears? Okay, boss. Now listen. Additional features. Additional features of application context container. Additional features of application context container. A. Pre-instantiation of singleton scope Spring Beans. Yes, I'll explain. Pre-instantiation of singleton scope Spring Bean. Next one. Ability to work with properties file and placeholders. Ability to work with properties file and placeholders. Support for I-18N internationalization. 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 Support for IIT and internationalization. Next, event handling and event publication. Yeah, some features we study now, some features we study in future. Okay, event handling and event publication. Next, automatic registration of, okay, bean post processors and bean factory post processors. Automatic registration of bean post processors and bean factory post processors. So these are the major advantages that we are having. Major benefits that it is having, boss. Are you listening my statement, boss? Come on. Are you understanding? These are the additional benefits that we are having, boss. So shall we take up one by one now? Yes. So few features I will discuss now, and few other features we will discuss along with Spring MVC, along with other concepts we will discuss. But definitely we are going to spend some good amount of time with respect to application context container. Don't worry. And it gives great support for annotation driven programming also, boss. Don't worry when to use bean factory container, when to use application context container. Both concepts we are going to discuss. But first of all, let us take pre-instantiation of singleton scope beans. That's the first feature, boss. Listen, guys. Listen. Bean factory container perform lazy instantiation of spring beans, boss. What do you mean by that? Now see, I did not call any factory.getBean method. Just a container created. Any objects are created, boss? Any objects are created here, boss? Sysout IOC container created. Super. We are getting the message IOC container created. Any bean class objects are created, boss? No. That means each object will be created only when you demand it. Only when you ask for it. You will ask only when need is there. So that means it is doing lazy instantiation or not. That means definitely it is doing lazy instantiation or not. Come on, guys. Okay. Now, let me write same story. File save as setter injection with AC. Setter injection test with AC. Setter injection test with AC. I'm going to create IOC container. What is that? I will directly use class path because in XML level, class path is very popular, boss. Okay. Class path XML place are very lengthy name. You can write shortcut also. CPX XML application context. You can write shortcut. Highlighting main words, you can write shortcuts. CTX is equal to new class path CPX CAC. New class path XML application context. By default, SRC folder is there in the class path. Long back I discussed that. Many times I said that statement. See this source SRC folder. Where, guys? Libraries, where we can see that. See this? By default, SRC folder is there in the class path, right? By default, SRC folder is there in the class path. So that's why I need not to mention that. com/nt/cfz/ application context.xml. application context.xml. If we are writing, is there any problem? There is no need of writing because already it will search in the class path now, boss. Already SRC is there in the class path. No need of writing SRC. Okay, now you observe how many singleton scope beans are there, guys? One, two, no, only one. And this is singleton, but default scope is singleton only now, boss. Okay, now listen. Anyhow, we cannot keep SOP statement in the constructor of date class, but here we can keep SOP statement in the constructor. Come on. Yes, boss. Now listen carefully. Prototype scope object is not created, but which message generator object is created or not? Is message generator object. Actually, date class object is also created and injection is also done. This is called pre-instantiation of singleton scope beans, guys. That means you call you call get bean, you don't call get bean, irrespective of that. The moment IOC container is created, all singleton scope beans will be instantiated. So this is called eager instantiation. Eager instantiation is also called pre-instantiation. Okay, listen, boss. Lazy instantiation is like what? Movie is 6 o'clock. You have gone to theater at 6 o'clock, purchased a ticket and watched movie. That means you purchase ticket only when need is there. Okay. Pre-instantiation or eager instantiation is like come on guys, purchasing ticket well before 10 days. Irrespective of on that day you will watch movie or not a secondary, but you will purchase the ticket. It's like advanced ticket booking, reservation kind of thing. Current booking is like lazy loading, lazy instantiation. Okay, boss. And only singleton scope beans will participate in what? In eager instantiation. No other scope beans will participate in what? Eager instantiation. Are you understanding my point? Devansh, please read the statement. Pre-instantiation of singleton scope beans. I need not to say prototype will not participate, request scope will not participate. Please keep the habit of reading it. Now people are sincerely asking question. Prototype will not participate, sir. Request will not participate, sir. Array, if all beans are participating, I would have written what? Pre-instantiation of spring bean. But I have written what? Pre-instantiation of singleton scope beans. I hope everyone completed engineering. You have that much common sense. When I say pre-instantiation of what? Singleton scope beans, remaining scope beans are participating or not participating? Definitely not participating. There is no need of confirming once again by asking me. Only singleton scope beans will participate in what? Pre-instantiation, not other scope beans. Not other scope beans. Okay, I'll explain why they are not participating also. I'll explain. Right. Now listen carefully, boss. Bean factory container creates Spring Bean class object. Spring Bean class object only when we ask for it by calling factory.getBean method. This is called Lazy instantiation. Lazy or late instantiation. Okay. Okay, guys. Now listen. Application context container creates objects for singleton scope spring beans. The moment okay, its container object is ready. Container object is ready. Okay. Irrespective of see, okay, get bean methods are get bean method is called or not. This is called pre-instance, pre or eager or early instantiation of singleton scope spring beans. Singleton scope spring beans. Array, if you know servlet boss, it is like load on startup. It is like load on startup on servlet component. Come on, guys. If you enable load on startup on servlet component, container creates object of our servlet class the moment we deploy the web application or not, irrespective of whether it will be used or not. Irrespective of whether it will be used or not. Come on, boss. Now listen. Okay, boss. Now listen. Without asking for object, it will be created. Sir, why other scope beans are not having pre-instantiation? Simple reason, boss. Though they are created, they will not be there in the cache. Since they are not there in the cache, they will be wasted. They will not be reused. Moreover, whenever need is there, again, next time they create a new object. So that means whatever objects that are created in the internal pre-instantiation will be wasted or not. I hope you are understanding my point. Please don't write confirmation messages. I don't need confirmation messages. I want answer. Okay. Silpa madam, check your question. Totally contradict statements you have given. Why other scope beans are not participating in pre-instantiation? This is very popular interview question. Okay, if those objects are created in pre-instantiation, they will be wasted. Why? Because those objects will not be kept in internal cache and reused. Moreover, according to their scope, again they need to create new object whenever need is there. So whatever objects that are created in pre-instantiation will be wasted. Are you listening my statement, boss? Are you understanding my statement? Whatever objects that are created through pre-instantiation will be definitely wasted. So that's why they have not given any pre-instantiation for other scopes of beans. But when it comes to singleton, all singleton scope objects will be kept in internal cache, boss. and they will be reused. Though object is created bit advanced, since there is a possibility of reusability, so that's why people they have given option of what pre-instantiation only for singleton scope beans. Everyone convinced with me or not? Okay. Why there is no pre-instantiation for other scopes of beans? Other scopes of beans. Other scopes of spring beans. Yes. The other scopes of spring beans makes IOC container creating new objects based on the new objects for spring bean classes. New object for spring bean classes based on the need. So the the already created objects of spring beans during pre-instantiation will be wasted. So the already created objects for spring beans during pre-instantiation will be wasted if pre-instantiation is allowed for other scopes of beans, other scopes of spring beans. So there is no pre-instantiation. Come on. Instantiation for other than singleton scope spring beans. Singleton scope spring beans. I think you convinced, boss, and I will give more conclusive answer. Don't worry. The pre-instantiated, one minute. The singleton scope spring bean class objects will be stored in the internal cache of IOC container for reusability. Internal cache of IOC container for what? Reusability. Understanding my point? Reusability. So the pre-instantiation done on singleton scope Spring Beans will not be wasted. Will not be wasted because tell me, they will be maintained in the internal cache for the reusability, because they will be maintained in the internal cache for reusability. Are you getting my point there, guys? I hope you convinced with this. Everyone is convinced. Though objects are created well in advance, but since there is a possibility of reusing those objects, because they will be placed in what? Internal cache. That's why pre-instantiation is allowed, right? But other scope beans, they are not kept in internal cache. Whatever objects that are created through pre-instantiation will be wasted. So anyhow, objects will be wasted. That's why they have not enabled it. They have not enabled it. Come on. Pre-instantiation is there in both web application and standalone environment. Pre-instantiation is there in both web application and standalone environment. So they have given best for us. They have intentionally given only for singleton scope beans, boss. I hope you convinced it with me, my dears. This is very popular interview question. Why there is no pre-instantiation for prototype scope beans? Why there is no pre-instantiation for request scope beans? You have to give convincing answer. You have to tell him by mistake, if they give also, whatever objects they are created in the pre-instantiation, not going to be maintained in internal cache because of their scope, so the objects will be wasted. I think you can give left and right to interviewer when this question comes. Interviewer generally asks this question. No one is aware of it. Everyone studies pre-instantiation is there for singleton scope bean. No one knows why they have not given for other scopes. Because in his attitude of asking only, in his tone only, that will reflect, boss. So at that time, you have to respect his tone. You have to say good question, great question, and later give the answer that is there in the material. Later give the answer. Because when he asks the question, it is going to be tough question. He feels it's very tough question. You have to respect his emotion. Good question, great question. I never got this kind of questions earlier. Then give the answer that you already know. So that his ego will be satisfied, our requirement will be fulfilled. You have to create win and win situation. Yes, Rahul, you are correct. You have to play a bit mind game also with the interviewer, boss. Suppose if you don't satisfy his ego, again you will search for another corner question. Again you didn't satisfy his ego. Again he'll search for another corner question. Why all these tensions? Let's discuss normal subject, right? Satisfy his ego once in a while. What happens? He's Ek Din Ka Sultan, right? After that, who is he? Who am I? We really don't bother. Suresh, request scope bean is not allocating memory in internal cache. He is staying in request object. Reusable within the request. Reusable within the request. So then why it will go for pre-instantiation? Moreover, without request, how object will be created in request scope? Use common sense. Right. Got it or not? Please, are you, I'm going for depth discussion. Are you ready to take it? Should I analyze subject like this, or should I give only definition, syntax, example? Should I teach subject with the depthness or not? Should I teach internals? We should go for analyzations. You are liking it? Because yesterday when I developed singleton Java class, someone said heavy, sir. That's why I'm saying. Are you feeling heavy or interesting? You are feeling heavy means you should check your core Java basics, boss. You want this kind of teaching? Should I continue this mode of teaching? Super. But you have to give time. Give me time, then I will give. I'll give everything. And you have chosen me as a faculty for depth subject. I will definitely deliver. But you have to give time also. Because if you give me time, I will show wonders in your mind. Yeah, see, very simple, guys. The people who already know Spring, the people who already know Spring also should feel, okay, that you are learning something new. And if you are feeling that means, let it continue. Don't go away from it. Because analyzation is all about, boss. If you know how to analyze the subject, after joining company, you can analyze any problem and you can apply any solution. So far you have written code only, but if you start doing analyzation, next time onwards you will start writing better code. And in internet 10 solutions are there. You will pick up better. Okay, Richa Paradesi, once in a while I am giving assignments. Definitely I will give this one. So yes, more wonders are there to come. Don't worry, come regularly. Yes, many people are confirming. Though they know Spring, they are learning something great. That's a really positive sign. Right. Fine, boss. Attend classes regularly. Don't relax. Anyhow, by this time, can you add Eclipse example we are showing for application context here notes? I didn't get it, boss. I didn't get Eclipse example, application context. Okay. Vivo, please post your question in the group. One or other help will come, or see the YouTube videos for Oracle installation. Right. Yes, code will come in future. Don't worry about it. Thank you, guys. Acha, you want that line, huh? 1 minute. How to create application context container. Okay, I'll give that line. You are right. Copy this. Snapshot. Why I'm giving code only now, boss? What is need of snapshot? Tell me. Already I have given that example code, boss. See here, already that example code is there. Already those lines are given. I don't know what you are seeing. Okay, since you are asking, I'm going to paste one more time. Don't worry. But same line I already given here. Please check it out. Okay. Thank you, boss. We'll meet tomorrow. Have a nice time. Gaffer Sheikh, in Spring MVC, we will see session scope also, application scope also. But I have to launch Spring MVC. Yes, Suresh, internal cache is useful only for singleton scopes. Bari, you don't try to mug up, try to understand, try to practice. Everything will be there in the brain. Right. Kruti, I have uploaded. Please check it out. Thank you. Have a nice time. Hyper